Hello, everyone. I welcome you back to the Empress Concubine, Chapter 2. I certainly hope that you enjoy that first part. I want to thank all of you for supporting my channel, and as we shift into 2024, may you receive nothing but good health, wealth, and abundance and blessings for you and your family. I also want to thank you for being patient. I was not well and my voice was just not the same. And so I had to take a couple days to recuperate and get myself back. But I am here with you in welcoming the new year. And so I invite you to sit back, relax, and enjoy The Emperor's Concubine. The chamber was warm, a fire cackling in the earth as Genieve entered with Camilla behind her. The room had a dark color design to give it a sense of her home. After her eyes settled into the chamber, she felt Camilla's hand on her arm. She turned and found the young girl pulling her hands back, fear rising in her gentle eyes. You need not fear me, Camilla. The Emperor has ordered you to serve me, but I am not used to people serving me. If anything, I would much prefer you and I to become two familiar hearts, Genieve said. Camilla bowed. I am nervous to hear that you expect that of me, for I am born of common blood. Blood has nothing to do with respect. Outside of this chamber, I would treat you as a servant so that eyes and ears may not whisper words to harm you. But once we are inside these walls, I want you to be honest with me and be unafraid. Camilla nodded. Yes, my lady. Good. Now, will you help me to undress? This gown weighs like the world on me. Camilla had just reached out to touch a button when there was a knock on the door. Both turned and Camilla walked to open it to reveal the Emperor standing there. Your Majesty, Camilla said as she dropped a curtsy. She stepped aside and opened the door, allowing him in. Leave us, he ordered. Yes, Your Majesty. Genieve stepped forward. Your Majesty, I need Camilla to help take this gown off of me. He smiled. I'm here now. I can help you. Leave. Camilla nodded and stepped out, and Genieve watched as the desires pooled in his eyes as he walked forward. It wasn't that he wasn't handsome. He was, indeed, very easy on the eyes, but he was a stranger who looked too deeply with seduction at her. She lowered her gaze and he reached out to touch her, but she pulled back instantly. You fear me, he said. She looked up, her regret written on her face. Forgive me, Your Majesty. The mere presence of you has me trembling. Smiling, he replied, Is it a good trembling, or is it about an emotion that threatens your well-being? She didn't answer. Taking a deep breath, he continued, You are the first concubine I have in my palace walls. You come with special request from your lord of city that you have healing hands. That little trick you did earlier, was that to calm the Empress down, or is that to remind her you have higher powers than her? A ghost of a smile appeared on her face. Your Majesty, I dare not to upset the Empress. I merely did as she asked of me. Laughing, he replied, You're full of wit. I believe you will do fine on your own. If you are uncomfortable with me helping you to undress, I shall have Camilla return. Once you are out of the wedding attire, I expect you back at the lobby to dine with me and my loyal subjects. She bowed her head. Yes, Your Majesty. The lobby hall was full of delightful music, and a table spread with grand food from a roast pig to fried lotus soup to the best mead being poured to enjoy. Empress Paloma watched her husband enter the lobby again with bright eyes, and she inhaled her breath deeply. She knew he had gone to visit his little concubine to make sure she was settled in all right. Judging from the look in his eyes, he might have done more than just talk. Jealousy fumed her heart, and she wanted to throw an apple at him. Empress, may I offer you some soup? Waverly asked. Stop offering me food. I am near ready to set this place on fire. Waverly lowered her gaze and bowed her head. Apologies, Empress. A moment later, dressed in a light blue gown, Genieve appeared with her hair piled on top of her head, revealing her slender neck. She'd worn long gold teardrop earrings that swung as she moved, and Paloma saw how her husband's eyes lit up. He immediately stood and offered her his arm, which she took, and he brought her over to sit at the table. He took his seat in the middle, beside both of them, and picked up his cup of mead. Empress, why don't you lead us in congratulatory? He asked. Paloma swallowed her emotions and picked up her cup, holding it as she stood up. The crowd silenced, and she forced a smile. The city is full of celebration tonight. I am content to see the Emperor smiling with the welcome of his new concubine. Our people are honored by the great Hayam Hulan tribe for sending in their daughter. May she blossom beautifully here in our city. The beauty and grace of our Empress! Everyone shouted as they picked up their cups and drank. Paloma took a seat, and her eyes avoided the glare of her husband's. When she finally looked up at him, the disappointment showed in his irises. My darling Empress, never in a million years did I think I would hear such a tragedy from your voice as I did tonight. Your toast, although disguised well to the people's ears, cannot escape mine. I heard every envy in your words. Smiling, she replied, Envy? What envy? Why would I choose to envy such a ridiculous young girl whose eyes have yet to live? Lionel forced a smile. You lay yourself quite apparent in my eyes, Empress. Why must you lose your grace in such a disappointing way? She bit her lower lip and forced the tears that were welling up in her eyes to retract. You belong to me, Your Majesty. To have to share you is now something I must get used to. You have always had to share me, my lady. My state affairs come first, and the bed of a husband comes last. I had hoped you would remember the grace of being a lady once she enters a harem, but I'm afraid you've lost your ability to be elegant. Smirking, Paloma replied, and you finally revealed the lust you've kept hidden. Your promises are all forgotten the moment she appeared. To their surprise, Genevive's voice replied, My beauty and looks are for the universe to gaze upon and applaud. I cannot control who lusts after my every single step, Empress. You, as a mother nation, should know that although the Emperor may lurk after me with tongue wagging, the most he would get out of it is a scent he will wish to linger longer. You are a beautiful woman, and yet your mind is as dense as a child's, perhaps more. To hold such jealous thoughts against me, a woman forced by hand to arrive in a city not her own. Lionel turned slightly and glared at her. Who allowed you to speak? Genevieve smiled and folded her hands together as a group of dancing girls whirled past them. No one needs give me permission to share thoughts I have formed in my mind. I am not a prisoner here. I am an esteemed concubine given as a gift for military purposes. Although I allow the arrangement, it does not mean I am here with contentment. The food is bland, the wine is weak, and the music is sore to my ears. How dare you offend His Majesty? Paloma asked in shock. No one has ever dared to speak as such to the Emperor. You are lucky the music is loud enough to cover your offenses. Genieve rolled her eyes. I can certainly have them stop playing the music so everyone can hear. Go to your chamber, Lionel said as his face paled. Go and stay there. It is obvious you do not care for such celebration. I will make the excuse that you are exhausted from the trip. Paloma watched in horror as the woman simply got up and left without proper farewell bidding. She saw her husband's hands shaking with anger, and his face beginning to turn bright red. Your Majesty, she is quite bold, Paloma said. How do you expect to keep her maintained with manners when she clearly does not care who she offends? Lionel shut his eyes as if in pain. The Hayam Hulan tribe are well known for bold women whose tongues are sharp. Laughing, Paloma replied, And here she stands. In your harem, Your Majesty. I hope that you will have the courage to punish her if see fit, and if I were to also hand out consequences, you would not stop me. He took a long, deep breath. You should know that if your punishment is for a good reason, I will not question. Only when done to satisfy envy will I put a stop to it. You as a mother nation are expected to train her the proper manner." Paloma laughed as she turned to find him staring off into the direction she'd left in. "You are sending me to a death sentence, Your Majesty. I am not going to train her because she's not willing to. Obviously, you and I both know where she stands when it comes to the matter of the heart." He stood and glanced at her. "Keep the lobby lively." "And where are you going?" "To get an answer out of her."
기다렸어요. 오랜 시간을 밤이 지나고 빛이 쏟아지길 삶이라는 건 답이 없었고 하루하루가 버거웠던 날들.
Lionel nearly broke the doors down as he pushed it to her chamber. Camilla was brushing her hair and almost jumped as he entered. She was still wearing her same gown but had removed the earrings and bun. "Leave," he ordered. "Yes, Your Majesty," Camilla said as she hurried out, closing the door behind her. Genieve stood and a smirk appeared on her face. "What are you doing here?" "Your offenses are too many tonight, Genieve. Why should I not be here to hand out punishment?" She didn't flinch as she walked forward. "And your empress? How will you punish her?" This had Lionel blinking in shock. "What?" "Do not think I did not hear her devilish tongue, my lord. She called me a ridiculous girl whose eyes had yet to live. I am a kind person, my lord, I am. But those who purposely lash out at me for their own personal gains will receive the same in return." Lionel's heart thumped, and he nearly tripped over his feet. "You heard the empress?" "Of course I did," she cried. "I would be dead if I had not. She spoke without worry that she would harm my feelings. I understand I am here as a threat to her as a woman, but the person who must handle this in a manner of grace is her. I did not want to be here in the first place. I am being blamed for actions I had no control over." Lionel took a deep breath. "Apologies on behalf of the Empress, Genieve. I should have handled this matter more appropriately. Forgive me." "I shall hand out my mercy this once, Your Majesty. But if the Empress wants me to respect and honor her, speaking such sour words of me will possibly make me tune out her each time she's near me." "I thank you for your kindness, Genieve. I shall teach the Empress some manners." The morning sun rose with the call of the flute from the top of the mountain temples where the Buddhas lived. Paloma stretched on the bed and a yawn broke from her mouth. Her eyes were tired as she'd spent it tossing and turning. After Lionel left to Geneviève's chamber, he never returned. Word was sent that he had retired to his chamber, and she soon left the lobby. Through the night, she'd pray that he would show up at her door, but he was nowhere in sight. Did he spend the night with her? She sat up, her hair falling over her shoulders. Exhaustion ached throughout her body. The door opened and Waverly walked in with a bowl of water to wash her up. "Waverly, where is the Emperor?" "He is out at the archery field." Pausing her thoughts, Paloma looked up. "Why is he there this early?" "Concubine Genieve is there practicing, and His Majesty has accompanied her." "She knows archery." "Yes, and apparently fencing and martial arts as well, I heard." Paloma shot to her feet. "He must be over his head in all of her." "Yes," Waverly said with a bright smile. "In fact, we all are. I have never seen a woman ride a horse like that and shoot arrows like her." Paloma's eyes darkened. "Why don't you ask her to teach you then?" Waverly's smile faded and she lowered her head. Apologies, Empress. Help me dress so I can go visit them. Having never been to the archery field before, it took longer than she'd hoped for and just arrived in time to see Genieve shooting arrows while riding on a horse in full speed. And then, to her shock, Genieve jumped to stand on the saddle and flipped, spinning in the air twice before landing on her feet just as the horse came to a halt behind her. Lionel was standing at the front. His eyes was memorized and heated anger filled her heart. Your Majesty! She cried. Both turned to look at her as she walked forward on the muddy ground. Her heel caught in the dirt and she screamed as she fell over. He came rushing over to help her stand as he brushed the dirt from her gown. Why are you here? Lionel asked. She smiled and cleared her throat. I wanted to have morning prayer breakfast with you today. Waverley mentioned you were here with Concubine Genieve. Genieve came forward holding a bow in her hand and dropped a curtsy. Empress, good morning to you. And to you, Paloma said with clenched teeth. I did not know you were gifted in the arts of archery. Smiling, Genieve replied, when you grow up in the wild, you must find ways to hunt and live. Right. She turned to Lionel. Your Majesty, shall we return to breakfast? Lionel nodded and then turned to Genieve. Join us. You have yet to eat. She smiled and bowed. Thank you, Your Majesty, but I am planning on joining Easton for the morning hunt. Lionel's eyes lit up. Oh? Why was I not informed Easton was going on a hunt? You joined the Empress, Your Majesty. I should like to see just how good your captain of the guard is when it comes to hunting skills. Lionel reached out a hand to stop her. How far will you be going? I will go to the ends of the earth. His eyes darkened. Then I shall go with you. Your Majesty, Paloma said, breakfast awaits you. He turned to her. Waverley, take the Empress for her breakfast. I shall return once I am done with the hunt. Paloma felt her heart break, and she tried once more to convince him. Your Majesty, if you let me dine alone, the Prime Ministers who will attend the morning prayers shall see. Word shall be escaped about our distance. Is that really what you'd like the people to think? Your Majesty, Genieve said, go with the Empress. I shall reward you with the latest and best skill. I promise you will not be disappointed. He let out a deep breath. State affairs, I suppose. Thank you for tuning in. Chapter 3 will be out shortly.